Marcus Johnson had lived through war zones, but nothing put his instincts on edge quite like the knock that rattled his front door at 11:47 p.m. Plano, Texas suburbs weren't supposed to sound like that, sharp, angry pounding that made the glass in the frame vibrate. His first thought was his family. Danielle was still at base on duty, and the kids were asleep upstairs. He set his glass of water down and moved quietly to the door, muscles tense, mind calculating. Through the peephole, two figures stood in the glow of his porch light. Both wore dark uniforms with patches stitched onto their sleeves, though Marcus noticed the cheap Velcro glint. The badges didn't shine, they looked printed, not issued. The taller one slammed his fist again. "Open up! This is official HOA business." Marcus didn't move. He spoke through the door, his voice low but firm. "HOA doesn't knock past midnight. State your name." The shorter one barked, "Community Security Division." "You're in violation. Open the door or we escalate." Marcus almost laughed, though his jaw tightened instead. He knew real authority when he saw it, and this wasn't it. He cracked the door just enough to speak, keeping the chain latched. The taller man leaned forward, trying to look intimidating. "You've failed to comply with repeated notices. Lawn violations, structural code, and unregistered modifications to your property. The board authorized us to collect fines or initiate foreclosure proceedings." Marcus locked eyes with him. Calm. Unshaken. "Show me your identification, paperwork, and a court order. Otherwise, you're trespassing on private property." The man sneered. "You think you can play lawyer? We can take your house faster than you think." Marcus's lips curled slightly, the same smile he gave recruits when they thought they could bluff through inspection. "Son, I've seen scarier men fold under pressure. You've got 10 seconds to leave my porch." That's when headlights swept across the driveway. A sleek black SUV pulled up, engine humming. Out stepped Linda Harrow, the HOA president. Mid-50s, platinum hair and a perfect bob, tailored blazer despite the late hour. She carried herself like a queen addressing her subjects. "Mr. Johnson," she said smoothly, ignoring the chain across the door. "We've been more than patient with you. These violations can no longer be ignored. My enforcers are here to ensure compliance." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Enforcers? This isn't a mob movie, Linda. This is a neighborhood." Her smile thinned. "You've painted your shutters the wrong shade. Your fence exceeds the height limit. And your front yard, don't get me started. This community thrives on order, and you, sir, are disrupting it. If you refuse to comply, we have every right to escalate." "Escalate how?" Marcus asked, his voice cool, steady. Linda's eyes flickered, just for a second, betraying that she hadn't thought it through. But she straightened her shoulders. "You'll find out soon enough." Behind her, the fake guards shifted, suddenly less certain. Neighbors' blinds began to twitch, shadows moving, camera phones raising. The street was waking. Marcus leaned against the doorframe, unbothered. "Linda, let me explain something. I served 12 years in the Army. I've dealt with men who actually had power, and I've buried friends because of it. If you think a spray-painted badge and empty threats are going to scare me, you've miscalculated." Her lips tightened. She motioned to the guards. "Do your job." The taller one stepped forward, hand reaching toward the doorframe. Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he let the silence stretch, heavy as a loaded weapon. And then, headlights again. A second car rolled into the driveway. This one Marcus knew by heart, Danielle's silver sedan. The engine cut, and out stepped Lieutenant Danielle Johnson, Navy uniform still sharp from her shift, her officer's cap tucked under her arm. Her presence froze the scene. The guards' hands dropped. Linda's eyes widened. Neighbors leaned closer to their windows. Danielle's voice cut the night like a command whistle. "Everyone back away from my house. Now." The guards hesitated, caught between Linda's glare and Danielle's authority. But Marcus saw it instantly. The balance of power had shifted. For the first time all night, Linda didn't have a retort. Danielle didn't raise her voice often, but when she did, people listened. The two fake security guards stepped back instantly, boots crunching on the Johnsons' gravel driveway. Marcus slid the chain off the door and opened it fully, standing tall beside his wife. Linda Harrow tried to recover her composure. She folded her arms, plastering on that HOA president's smile she usually reserved for board meetings. "Lieutenant Johnson," she said smoothly, stressing the title like it was a nuisance. "This doesn't concern you. This is between the Homeowners Association and your husband." Danielle's eyes narrowed. "Wrong. This is my house too, and these are my children asleep inside. You send imposters in knockoff uniforms to our door at midnight? That concerns me very much." The taller guard shifted uncomfortably. "Ma'am, we were instructed." "Instructed by who?" Danielle cut him off, stepping closer. Her voice carried the crisp edge of command, the kind that didn't invite argument. "Name, badge number, and licensing authority." "Now." The guard's mouth opened, then closed. He glanced at Linda, who waved her hand dismissively. "That won't be necessary," Linda snapped. "They're contracted security. Fully authorized by the board." Danielle tilted her head, eyes sharp. "Contracted? Then you'll have no problem showing me the license number filed with the Texas Department of Public Safety." She paused, letting the silence press down. "Or is it that these men aren't actually licensed at all?" Whispers carried across the street. Neighbors had stepped onto their porches, some recording on their phones. A red recording light blinked like a warning. Linda's facade cracked. She hissed through clenched teeth, "You're making a spectacle of something that should be handled privately. This community depends on order, and order requires compliance. Your husband has repeatedly ignored notices." Marcus crossed his arms, calm but firm. "Notices that don't exist. I keep records of everything that comes through my mailbox. There's no violation, no warning letters, nothing signed. You're inventing charges to push people around." Linda straightened, raising her chin like royalty. "This neighborhood has standards, Mr. Johnson. Your fence is 2 inches too high. Your shutters are painted a color outside the approved palette. And you've parked your truck in the driveway overnight, against regulation." Danielle's eyebrow arched. "So you send fake cops in the middle of the night? That's not enforcement, that's harassment." The crowd murmured in agreement. Someone muttered, "She tried that with me last year." Another whispered, "She sent a letter about my mailbox color." Linda's face reddened. She pointed a finger at Marcus. "If you want to test me, fine. But know this, the HOA has the power to place liens, to fine you daily, even to foreclose. Keep resisting, and you'll lose this house faster than you can blink." Marcus didn't flinch. His voice was calm, steady, a wall against her fury. "You don't scare me, Linda. Paper threats only work when people roll over. I fought for this country so people wouldn't be bullied in their own homes." The fake guards shifted uneasily. The shorter one leaned toward the taller, whispering something Marcus couldn't catch. Both looked ready to bolt. Danielle's tone dropped to steel. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave my property, immediately. If you return without a court order and licensed officers, I'll treat it as trespassing and call the police. And if you continue harassing us, I'll make sure the Navy Legal Office knows exactly how you conduct yourself here." The words hung in the humid Texas night. For the first time, Linda faltered. Her eyes darted to the neighbors recording her every move. She forced a brittle smile, motioned for her guards, and muttered, "Come on. This isn't over." The SUV doors slammed, the engine revved, and the vehicle rolled down the street. Marcus exhaled slowly, tension leading his shoulders. Danielle didn't relax. She scanned the street, meeting the eyes of neighbors still watching. "This isn't just about us," she said quietly. "She's been pulling this on everyone. An older man across the street nodded grimly. She's been terrorizing this place for years. Maybe now someone's finally gonna stand up to her. Danielle looked at Marcus, her jaw set. Then it looks like the fight just found us. The neighborhood was wide awake now. Porch lights flickered on up and down the street, silhouettes gathered behind windows, and cell phones glowed as neighbors recorded every second. The air was thick with humidity, but the real weight pressing down on the cul-de-sac was the standoff unfolding in the Johnsons' driveway. Danielle stepped forward, the silver bars on her navy uniform catching the porch light. She didn't raise her voice, but her tone carried command, the kind that belonged on a deck during inspection, not in a sleepy Texas suburb. "You too," she said, locking eyes with the fake guards. "Step back. You're done here." The taller guard swallowed hard. His hand hovered near the phony badge on his chest like he wanted to make it real by touching it. "Ma'am, we were just told to." "By who?" Danielle cut him off. She held his gaze until he dropped it to the ground. "State your name. Your licensing agency. The company you work for. And don't bother lying, Texas law requires every private security officer to carry credentials. Show them. Now." The shore guard shifted his weight from one foot to the other. His mouth opened, but no words came. A murmur rippled through the growing crowd of neighbors. Someone whispered, "They don't have papers." Another muttered, "Just like last time." Linda tried to regain control. She marched up, heels clicking against the concrete. "Lieutenant, you're out of line. This isn't a military base. This is my community, and these men answer to me. You have no authority here." Danielle squared her shoulders. "Wrong. I have every authority to protect my home, my family, and my neighbors from imposters. These men are impersonating officers, illegal under state law. I should call the police right now." She reached into her pocket, pulling out her phone. The guards exchanged panicked glances. The shorter one muttered, "I told you this was a bad idea." Linda hissed at them, her voice sharp as broken glass. "Stand your ground. Do not move." But her words only exposed the cracks. The taller guard lifted his hands slightly, palms open, a silent plea. "Look, we're just doing what we were told. We didn't mean any harm." Marcus stepped forward, his presence calm but unyielding. "Then you won't mind answering a few questions on camera." He gestured to the neighbors' phones recording every angle. "Tell everyone here who hired you. Tell them what Linda promised you." The guards froze, caught in the spotlight of truth. Linda's face reddened. "This is harassment. You're twisting things." She turned toward the crowd. "Don't listen to them, Mr. Johnson is a known troublemaker. He's been violating community standards since the day he moved in." But the neighbors didn't look convinced. A woman 2 doors down spoke up. "You fined me $500 for planting the wrong flowers. When I appealed, you threatened foreclosure." Another man added, "You sent letters saying my garage door was unapproved color. I had to repaint it 3 times." Phones tilted toward Linda now, capturing every accusation. Her perfect mask of authority cracked further. Danielle's voice sliced through the chaos. "Enough. You've been bullying this neighborhood with fake rules, fake officers, and fake threats. It ends tonight." The shorter guard took a step back, muttering, "I'm done." He pulled the Velcro patch off his shirt and tossed it onto the ground. The taller one followed, ripping his badge off and dropping it on the driveway. The crowd erupted in murmurs. A few clapped quietly. Linda's eyes darted, desperate, cornered. "You think you've won? This isn't over. I'll bury you in fines. I'll drown you in legal fees until you beg me to stop." Marcus shook his head slowly. "You don't understand, Linda. The more you push, the more people will see the truth. Tonight wasn't about us, it was about all of them." He gestured to the neighbors watching. "And they're done being afraid of you." The guards slumped toward the SUV, heads low. The cameras followed every step. Linda stood frozen, her power slipping like sand through her fingers. Danielle leaned closer, her voice low but sharp enough to cut glass. "You tried to intimidate the wrong family." And with that, the Johnsons turned back into their home, leaving Linda to face the judgmental stares of an entire street. The morning sun bathed the Johnsons' quiet street in warm light, a stark contrast to the tension of the previous night. Marcus sipped his coffee at the kitchen table, glancing out at the empty driveways. Danielle sat opposite him, still in her uniform jacket draped over her chair, scrolling through the neighborhood app on her phone. "They're already talking about last night," Danielle said, her finger hovering over a video clip. Half the street had recorded the confrontation, and the posts were spreading. "HOA president caught with fake security," one read. "Neighbors standing up for fairness." Marcus nodded. "Good. The more eyes on her, the better. She can't control the story anymore." But the moment of calm shattered when Marcus stepped outside to grab the morning paper. A bright red envelope pinned to the door caught his eye. He tore it open and read the latest notice from Linda Sorensen. Non-compliant shutter color. Improper vehicle placement. Unauthorized structural modifications. Failure to comply with HOA directives. At the bottom, in bold, $1,000 fine due immediately. Non-payment may result in lien and foreclosure proceedings. Marcus exhaled, jaw tight. She didn't even wait 24 hours. Neighbors began their morning walks. Harold, the older man from across the street, stopped and held up a crumpled notice. "Got one too. Says my fence posts are too wide. I measured them myself. They're fine." Teresa, pushing her stroller, added, "And she fined me for having my recycling bin out. Said it didn't match the neighborhood aesthetic." Danielle stepped outside, her presence immediately commanding attention even without the uniform. "She's doubling down," she said. "She knows last night weakened her, so now she's trying to reassert control." Marcus gathered everyone inside. The kitchen table quickly became a war room, littered with notices, phones, and notebooks. He spread Linda's latest notice flat. "If we want to fight her, outrage won't cut it. We need evidence." Danielle nodded. "Dates, photos, witness statements, everything must be airtight." Harold frowned. "She runs the board. She could ignore complaints." Danielle's tone sharpened. "Then we take it higher. State regulators, courts, media if needed. But first, we build the case." Marcus opened his laptop, creating a folder titled HOA Harassment Evidence. He photographed each notice and added screenshots of videos from the previous night. Neighbors began contributing, handing over copies of fines, warnings, and other letters they've received. Danielle organized them, methodically creating timelines and records. "Look at this," Marcus said, pointing to one letter. "The signature line doesn't match hers. She's forging documents." Another neighbor, Chris, spoke up. "She increased HOA dues last year without a vote. Where's that money going?" Realization rippled through the room. Danielle leaned back, arms crossed, eyes sharp. This isn't just harassment, it could be fraud. The weight of that word hung over the group. Fraud meant consequences. Fraud meant Linda could be removed from power or face legal action. Marcus scanned the room. "She's been dividing us, picking people off one at a time. But if we stand together, we can stop her." The neighbors nodded, murmuring agreements. One by one, they committed, documenting everything, sharing evidence, and preparing to confront the board collectively. Danielle's gaze drifted to the street. "We have to assume she'll hit back harder. She won't go down easy." Just then, a black SUV rolled slowly past the house. Linda's glare met their eyes before the vehicle continued down the block. Marcus looked at Danielle. "She's watching." Danielle's jaw set. "Good. Let her watch. We're ready now." For the first time since the confrontation, Marcus felt a surge of confidence. Linda could intimidate and threaten, but she couldn't intimidate a community united. And the Johnsons were determined to make sure the truth and fairness prevailed. By late afternoon, the Johnsons' living room had transformed into a command center. Notices, photographs, and videos covered every surface. Laptops hummed with neighbors logging evidence and drafting petitions. It wasn't chaos, it was organized determination. Harold leaned over the coffee table, pointing at a spreadsheet he had created. "Look at this. 10 families in this street alone receive fines for nonsense, shutters, fences, trash bins. Patterns don't lie." Teresa, cradling her golden retriever's leash, added, "I've got emails from last year with vague threats about my plants. I never saved them properly, but this, it's more than rules, it's intimidation." Danielle stepped forward, reviewing the evidence with precision. "We're not just proving harassment, we're showing systematic abuse. Each notice, each fine, each staged intimidation, all documented. We have leverage." Marcus nodded, glancing at the group. "And that leverage gives us power. Not to retaliate, but to demand accountability. This ends at the board level. We need a recall vote and transparency for the entire neighborhood." Chris, a neighbor who had stayed quiet for years, raised his hand. "I'll talk to everyone on my street. Most folks don't even know this is happening. They'll follow if someone shows them the truth." Lillian, clutching a folder of past notices, spoke softly but firmly. "We also need signatures, petition support. If enough of us show up, Linda can't ignore the vote." Harold looked around. "Then we split tasks. Door-to-door signatures, digital petitions, evidence collection, and social media awareness. Every tool counts." Danielle pointed to the teenager with the phone. "You've got the video from last night. Edit a short clip showing her intimidation tactics. Make it clear, concise, and shareable." The teen nodded eagerly. "Done. I'll post it to the neighborhood group. People need to see the truth, not just hear it." As the group divided tasks, Marcus pulled Danielle aside. "Are we ready for the next step?" "She's not going to give up quietly." Danielle's expression was steady, her voice calm but firm. "We have the evidence, the community, and the law on our side. She can escalate, but we're prepared. The key is to stay united and transparent." By evening, the petition drive had begun. Harold and Chris canvassed the neighborhood, explaining the situation and handing out signature forms. Teresa organized an online petition to reach residents who couldn't be home, while Lillian cataloged every documented violation from Linda's files. Back at the Johnsons' house, Danielle and Marcus reviewed the footage from the previous night. The two so-called security men admitted on camera that they were unlicensed and had only been hired to intimidate the family. Their statements were unmistakable proof of fraud and harassment. One by one, neighbors returned with signatures. Murmurs of solidarity filled the living room. The fear that had dominated the streets only a few days earlier was fading, replaced by determination and collective courage. Outside, the sun dipped behind the rooftops, casting long shadows over the quiet streets of Plano. But inside the Johnson home, a quiet revolution was underway. Every signature, every story, every video clip was a step toward reclaiming fairness in the community. Danielle addressed the group. "Remember, this isn't about one family or one individual. It's about accountability. If we allow abuse of power to go unchecked, it becomes the norm. Tonight, we stand together, and we make sure that never happens here again." Marcus added, "We're sending a message, no more intimidation. Transparency, fairness, and the law will prevail over fear and personal agendas." The energy in the room was palpable. Neighbors who had once felt powerless now understood their collective strength. The Johnsons were no longer just defending their home, they were leading a movement, one petition and one video at a time. As the evening wound down, the living room was filled with quiet conversations, planning, and determination. The fight was far from over, but the neighborhood had taken its first unified stand. Danielle looked out the window at the street where so many of their neighbors lived, and a sense of resolve filled her. "Tomorrow, we present this to the board," she said. "And when we do, everyone will see we are serious. Linda can't bully a united community." Marcus placed a hand on hers, pride swelling in his chest. "We're ready. And this time, it's not just about our family. It's about all of us." The day of the HOA board meeting arrived, and for the first time in months, the community center was packed. Folding chairs scraped against the floor as residents filed in, exchanging whispers and sidelong glances. The air was thick with anticipation. Everyone had heard about the Johnsons' stand on their porch, and now they were ready to see if the board would face accountability. Linda sat at the head of the table, her blazer pressed, hair neat, but the forced smile did little to mask her unease. Beside her, 3 other board members shifted nervously, uncomfortable under the weight of so many eyes. Many had tolerated her overreach quietly before, but tonight, they were watching too. Marcus and Danielle entered together, hand in hand, drawing murmurs from the crowd. Harold, Teresa, Lillian, and dozens of neighbors filled the back rows. Phones were raised, ready to record. The energy in the room was palpable. Curiosity, skepticism, and quiet resolve mingled in the air. Linda rapped the gavel. "This meeting will come to order. Tonight, we address violations of property standards and enforcement actions against the Johnson family." Her voice wavered slightly. "I issue fines for repeated infractions." Teresa didn't wait. "You mean the same family you brought fake security to intimidate?" she called out. Gasps and scattered laughter rippled through the room. Linda slammed the gavel. "Order," she barked, trying to regain control. Danielle rose, her presence commanding. "This isn't about order. It's about abuse of power. Last night, in front of half the neighborhood, you brought 2 men who admitted they weren't licensed security, threatened foreclosure without proof, and now expect us to accept these fines as legitimate?" Voices erupted, some residents shouting in agreement, others demanding explanation. Board members shifted in their seats, avoiding Linda's gaze. Marcus spoke from his chair. "Show us the record. Show us the notices you claim to have sent. Because as of today, we've received nothing, no letters, no emails, no documentation." Harold stepped forward, holding the slip Linda had attempted to sneak into his mailbox. "Here," he said, placing it on the table. "She's been rushing to get these out before anyone could question them." Lillian added, "This is what she sent me last year, vague notices, no signatures, nothing official. I never questioned them because I didn't want trouble, but this is a pattern." The murmurs grew louder. One by one, neighbors shared similar stories: fines for minor or non-existent infractions, threats without documentation, intimidation disguised as enforcement. A pattern emerged, not rules enforced fairly, but power wielded to control. Danielle's voice rose above the noise. "Leadership without fairness is not leadership, it's dictatorship. If the board allows this to continue, you're complicit." Linda gripped the gavel tightly, her face red, but the room no longer obeyed her. Phones recorded, petitions were signed, and witnesses were present. Her authority had been undermined publicly. A few board members shifted uneasily. One woman in a navy blouse cleared her throat. Perhaps we need to review these actions more closely. Proper procedure may not have been followed." Marcus nodded. "That's right. Proper process, transparency, accountability. The neighborhood deserves it, and tonight, the people are watching." By the end of the meeting, chaos had given way to clarity. Residents understood the scope of Linda's abuse, and the Johnsons had presented their case meticulously. The petitions, signed by more than 2/3 of homeowners, were ready to call for a recall vote. Outside the community center, conversations buzzed like electricity. Clips of the confrontation had already begun circulating on neighborhood social media groups. People were talking, planning, and organizing, no longer afraid. Danielle whispered to Marcus as they left. "Tonight, we prove that standing up works. We're not just protecting our home. We're protecting the whole community from abuse of power. Marcus smiled, though his jaw tightened with lingering tension. Linda won't give up easily, but she's exposed. Every move she makes from now on will be watched. As the Johnsons walked back to their car, the energy among neighbors was tangible. The balance of power had shifted. The board could no longer operate unchecked, and the Johnsons, once targets of intimidation, had become leaders of a community united by fairness and courage. The real work was just beginning, but the message was clear: when people stand together, power without accountability cannot survive. 2 days after the heated board meeting, the Johnsons and their neighbors gathered at the community park, a central space for their subdivision. Folding chairs were scattered beneath oak trees, picnic tables piled with petition forms, and small groups of residents exchanged strategies and updates. The air carried a strange mixture of determination, relief, and quiet excitement. After months of quiet intimidation, the community was finally mobilizing. Marcus and Danielle arrived together, hand in hand, their daughter skipping alongside them, juice box in hand, wide-eyed at the lively scene. Harold waved them over proudly. "We've got enough," he said, voice low but steady. Between the paper signatures and the online ones, more than 2/3 of homeowners are on board. That's enough to call for a recall vote. Cheers erupted around the circle of neighbors, some clapping, others smiling in disbelief. Even Teresa let out a short laugh, tugging her golden retriever close. "I never thought I'd see the day people actually stand up," she said. The energy shifted as the crowd waited, expectant. The balance of power had clearly moved, but Linda Sorensen had not yet made her presence known. Moments later, she appeared at the far end of the park, her blazer pulled tight, eyes sharp, trying to project authority. Conversations quieted as she approached, her heels crunching softly on the gravel path. "You think you can tear me down with gossip and lies?" Linda called out, her voice cutting through the crowd. "Signatures on a piece of paper don't erase my responsibilities." The murmurs rose, but no one shouted back. They had seen enough to know that intimidation no longer worked. Danielle stepped forward calmly, her voice carrying clearly. "Order isn't built on fear, Linda. It's built on trust, and you lost that the night you tried to bully my family." Linda scoffed, trying to mask the unease now creeping into her posture. "I was protecting property values. That's my responsibility." Marcus raised the clipboard full of verified signatures. "No, your responsibility was to serve the people in this community, not lord over them. And now the people have spoken." He handed the clipboard to Harold, who placed it prominently on the table for all to see. The crowd shifted, some nodding, some quietly clapping, their collective strength palpable. Linda's fists clenched at her sides, face red, but the phones, petitions, and witnesses left her powerless. "You're done, Linda," Lillian's voice rang out, clear and steady. "We're not against rules. We're against abuse. That's what you brought here." For a moment, Linda looked as if she might lash out again, but as she scanned the crowd, she saw the unwavering resolve in the neighbors' eyes, the evidence of her overreach recorded in phones and petitions, and the unity of the community she had tried to intimidate. Her stance faltered. Without another word, Linda turned sharply and walked away, heels sinking slightly into the grass as she disappeared down the park's path. Silence fell, but it was different now. Relief, solidarity, and triumph replaced the tension of days past. Danielle turned to Marcus, voice soft but firm. "This isn't just about our family. It's about everyone here. If we don't hold leaders accountable, power will always be abused." Marcus nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "And tonight, the neighborhood proved we won't be silenced." Neighbors lingered, exchanging hugs, handshakes, and quiet congratulations. Conversations buzzed, ideas for community improvements shared, and long-standing divisions eased. The sense of empowerment was tangible. People felt like homeowners, not subjects under the whims of one individual. Their daughter tugged at Marcus's sleeve, wide-eyed. "Did we win, Daddy?" Marcus crouched, brushing her hair from her face. "We stood up for what's right. That's the real victory." As the sun dipped low, casting warm streaks of orange across the park, Danielle spoke to the assembled neighbors. Power means nothing if it isn't fair. And if anyone tries to abuse it again, we now know the strength of this community. We'll stand together. The crowd murmured in agreement, and for the first time in months, the neighborhood felt whole again. No one feared intimidation, every voice mattered, every action counted. The recall vote was set, but the outcome was already clear. The Johnsons had turned a family struggle into a community victory. Leadership, the residents realized, isn't about control, it's about fairness, transparency, and the courage to stand up. And on that day, the community had done exactly that. The day after the recall vote, the Johnsons woke to a neighborhood transformed. There was an air of quiet determination instead of fear, a sense that residents now understood the power of collective action. Even the early morning sun seemed brighter as Marcus brewed coffee and Danielle folded her uniform neatly on a chair. Their daughter wandered into the kitchen, her small feet padding softly across the floor, curious about the buzz that lingered from the day before. Marcus looked at Danielle, a tired smile tugging at his lips. It's done, at least for now. People are paying attention. That's what matters. Danielle nodded, sipping her coffee. It's not just about attention. It's about accountability. Linda can't hide behind a title anymore. The neighborhood has witnesses, documentation, and signatures. That changes everything. Outside, neighbors moved through the streets with newfound confidence. Harold went door to door again, this time checking that everyone understood the next steps for the formal recall vote. Teresa managed an online group, updating residents with video clips and verified records of fines. Lillian and Chris organized schedules, ensuring signatures were validated. Even the teenager who had captured the initial confrontation continued editing his footage, preparing it as a clear record for the vote. By mid-morning, the Johnsons received messages from residents who had previously stayed silent. Many shared stories of fines, notices, and intimidation they had quietly endured, unaware they weren't alone. The community was no longer fragmented by fear, everyone felt part of a united effort. Marcus sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the messages. He felt the weight of responsibility but also a surge of hope. This is bigger than our family, he said quietly to Danielle. It's about setting a precedent. If she thinks she can intimidate anyone else, she'll know the neighborhood won't stand for it. Danielle placed her hand over his. Exactly. It's about fairness. And about teaching our daughter that standing up for what's right isn't just an idea, it's action. Their daughter tugged at Danielle's sleeve. Mom, will the lady be our neighbor again? She asked innocently. Danielle smiled faintly but her eyes were firm. She'll still live here, sweetheart. But she won't be able to control people unfairly anymore. That's what matters. As the day progressed, the neighborhood continued organizing. Flyers went up, online posts circulated, and more residents came forward to share experiences with Linda's leadership. The momentum built steadily, a wave that couldn't be ignored. Even the other board members, who had previously rubber-stamped Linda's decisions, now faced pressure to act transparently. By evening, a meeting was held at the community center to finalize preparations for the recall vote. The room was packed, buzzing with energy and a sense of ownership. Danielle spoke to the assembly, her voice steady and commanding. Leadership is a responsibility, not a privilege. Rules are meant to guide, not intimidate. We've shown that a community can hold its leaders accountable when we work together. Tonight, we ensure that continues. Harold added, this isn't just about the Johnsons. It's about every homeowner who deserves fairness. Power without accountability is dangerous, and now we're showing that it won't be tolerated. Even after the official meetings ended, residents lingered, discussing how to maintain transparency, prevent future abuses, and foster community unity. The Johnsons returned home, their daughter trailing behind, exhausted but smiling. The family knew this fight wasn't just a legal battle, it was a lesson in courage, solidarity, and civic responsibility. As darkness fell, Danielle looked out the window at the quiet street, now lit by porch lights and a sense of peace. "This is what community looks like when people refuse to be silenced," she said softly. Marcus nodded, his hand resting on her shoulder. "And it's a lesson that will stay with all of us. For years to come, this street will remember that standing together matters more than fear, intimidation, or titles." In the following weeks, the recall vote proceeded smoothly. Linda Sorensen lost her position as HOA president, her tactics exposed and no longer tolerated. The remaining board members pledged transparency, guided by the documentation and evidence compiled by neighbors. The Johnson family's home remained secure, but more importantly, their actions had empowered an entire community to reclaim fairness and oversight. The neighborhood had learned a vital lesson: the strength of a community is measured not by rules or authority, but by the courage of its residents to demand justice. And for Marcus, Danielle, and their daughter, that lesson was not just theoretical, it was living proof, a daily reminder that fairness and accountability were worth standing up for, no matter the risk.